Clark Gable. The event in question transpired in 1933, during the peak of Gable's career, not long after his breakthrough role in It Happened One Night, for which he would later win an Academy Award. In the early hours of a crisp March morning, Gable, reportedly under the influence of alcohol, was driving through the streets of Los Angeles. The streets, largely deserted at the late hour, were a witness to a tragedy that would soon unfold. As Gable drove through an intersection, he struck a pedestrian, a down-on-his-luck drifter known only by the name of Doyle. The impact was severe, and Doyle was fatally injured, dying instantly at the scene. Panicked, and perhaps realizing the potential damage to his burgeoning career, Gable did not stop to offer aid or call for help. Instead, he sped away, leaving behind the scene of the accident. The cover-up that ensued was as meticulous as it was immediate. MGM, the studio to which Gable was contracted, understood the disastrous implications such a scandal could have not only on Gable's career but also on their investments. Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM, was quick to deploy a team of fixers to manage the fallout. These fixers, often former law enforcement officials with deep connections within the LAPD, worked swiftly to redirect the investigation. A homeless man with a minor criminal record was quickly arrested and charged with jaywalking and public intoxication, effectively positioning him as responsible for the accident. This scapegoat, whose identity remains obscured in the annals of studio cover-ups, was coerced into pleading guilty in exchange for a few dollars and the promise of no jail time. Clark Gable's involvement was scrubbed clean from the incident, with police reports manipulated and witness testimonies tailored to fit the new narrative. The newspapers of the time, heavily influenced by studio money and the power wielded by figures like Mayer, barely whispered about the accident. Those that did report it carried the story of the unfortunate accident involving an unnamed transient and an unidentified driver. Years later, this incident would resurface, primarily through biographies and exposés on the hidden lives of Hollywood's elite. Film historians and biographers have pointed to this event as a glaring example of the control studios held over their stars' lives and the lengths to which they would go to protect their assets. The moral implications of such cover-ups were largely overshadowed by the burgeoning studio system, which viewed its stars as commodities rather than individuals with moral responsibilities. Errol Flynn. The year was 1942. A decade after Flynn had become an international sensation with films like Captain Blood, 1935, and The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938. In Hollywood, Flynn's mansion was notorious for its opulent parties that often spiraled into wild, debauched gatherings. It was at one of these lavish soirees in September 1942 that two underage girls, Peggy Satterlee and Betty Hansen, claimed they were sexually assaulted by Flynn. Peggy, a 17-year-old aspiring actress, met Flynn on his yacht, the Sirocco, during a trip to Catalina Island. She alleged that Flynn had coerced her into drinking and then raped her. Similarly, Betty, also 17, accused Flynn of making inappropriate advances and ultimately raping her at another party at his home. The accusation swiftly led to a highly publicized court trial, the proceedings of which were both sensational and scandalous, reflecting the actor's flamboyant lifestyle. The trial began in late 1942 and was a media circus. Flynn's legal team, led by the famed Hollywood attorney Jerry Giesler, mounted a vigorous defense. Giesler's strategy was twofold: discredit the moral character of the accusers and frame Flynn as a victim of extortion. The defense paraded witnesses who testified to the girls' questionable reputations and insinuated that the young women were attempting to extort money from the wealthy actor. After a trial that lasted several weeks, the jury deliberated for less than 13 hours before returning with a verdict of not guilty. The acquittal was met with cheers in the courtroom, largely from Flynn's fans who had turned up in droves to support him. The verdict effectively restored Flynn's public image, though it did little to address the deeper questions about his behavior and the Hollywood culture that enabled it. Flynn's career continued to thrive post-trial, with successful films like Edge of Darkness, 1943, and Objective Burma, 1945, following soon after. However, his lifestyle remained unchecked, marred by alcoholism and financial recklessness, until his health began to fail. Errol Flynn died in 1959, but the stories of his legal battles and the cultural dynamics they exposed continue to echo in Hollywood's corridors, serving as a cautionary tale of excess and the potential fallibility of justice when it collides with celebrity. Joan Crawford. In the early 1920s, before she became the illustrious star known as Joan Crawford, Lucille Fay LeSueur was struggling to make ends meet in Kansas City. It was during this period of financial desperation that Crawford, driven by necessity, reportedly engaged in shoplifting. These incidents primarily involved stealing clothing and accessories from local stores, a risky endeavor that was all too common among the economically disadvantaged actresses of that era. The exact details of these shoplifting incidents remain somewhat murky, given the passage of time and the protective layers of studio intervention. However, historical accounts suggest that Crawford was caught on at least one occasion. This event purportedly occurred around 1922, a crucial juncture just before her Hollywood breakthrough. Caught trying to steal a scarf from a prominent department store, Crawford faced the possibility of a criminal charge, a predicament that could have ended her career before it even started. MGM, the studio that would later sign her, played a critical role in managing these early crises. Studio executives, recognizing her potential star power, worked diligently behind the scenes to smooth over her legal issues. This often involved negotiating with store owners and local authorities to keep her infractions out of the press and courtrooms. The studio's intervention was pivotal in preserving Crawford's image and potential marketability. Despite these early setbacks, Crawford's determination and talent could not be overshadowed. She moved to Los Angeles and soon caught the eye of Hollywood executives who were initially unaware of her troubled past. Her breakout role in Our Dancing Daughters in 1928 catapulted her to stardom, effectively turning the page on her earlier, less glamorous life chapters. Robert Mitchum. In 1948, Mitchum was arrested for marijuana possession, a serious offense at the time, which could have led to severe legal consequences and derailed his rising stardom. The arrest occurred on the evening of September 1, 1948, when detectives raided a small Hollywood party following a tip-off. Mitchum, along with actress Lila Leeds, real estate agent Robin Ford, and hairdresser Vicki Evans, were caught in what was described as a marijuana den. The actors were found in a haze of smoke, with several marijuana cigarettes stubbed out and others still burning. The police action was part of a larger crackdown on drug use in Hollywood, which was then perceived as a growing problem within the industry. Mitchum's arrest shocked his fans and the public, as he was at the peak of his career, having recently starred in successful films like Out of the Past, 1947. Initially, Mitchum was stoic about his predicament, famously telling reporters, "This is the bitter end of everything, my career, my marriage, everything." He even spent a week in jail, a rare outcome for a star of his magnitude, which added a gritty layer to his screen image that his fans had not seen before. Despite his grim predictions, Mitchum's career did not suffer as much as expected. He was sentenced to 60 days in prison and served 43 days at a Los Angeles County prison farm, an experience that did little to harm his public image in the long run. In fact, the arrest and subsequent jail time enhanced his reputation as a Hollywood bad boy, a persona that audiences increasingly found appealing in the era's shifting cultural landscape. Tula Bankhead. In 1928, Bankhead found herself embroiled in a scandal that almost obliterated her burgeoning career. The incident occurred during one of her many lavish parties, a frequent and much talked about affair where the social elite of Hollywood and Broadway would mingle. According to reports from the time, Bankhead was accused of stealing a valuable necklace from a fellow actress at the party, a piece estimated to be worth over $5,000, a significant sum at the time. The case quickly caught the attention of the press, given Bankhead's high profile. She was charged with grand theft, leading to a sensational trial that captivated the public's imagination. The courtroom was packed daily, as spectators and reporters alike were eager to catch a glimpse of the drama involving one of theater's most flamboyant figures. Despite the serious nature of the charge, the jury was swayed by Bankhead's charisma and the lack of direct evidence linking her to the theft. After a trial that lasted several weeks, she was acquitted, but the ordeal had a lasting impact on her reputation. The trial provided a glimpse into the chaotic nature of Bankhead's personal life, which was characterized by excesses and her penchant for drama. Following the trial, Bankhead's career experienced a brief downturn as studios became wary of her off-screen controversies overshadowing her on-screen performances. However, Her talent was undeniable, and she soon made a comeback with significant roles both on Broadway and in Hollywood. Her performance in The Little Foxes, 1939, and Lifeboat, 1944, re-established her as a formidable actress, capable of drawing audiences despite her past legal issues. Jean Harlow. On the morning of September 5, 1932, Paul Byrne was found dead in their Beverly Hills home, a bullet wound to his head and a note beside him, which read, "Dearest dear, unfortunately this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I have done you, and to wipe out my abject humiliation. I love you." The ambiguity of the note and the circumstances of his death led to rampant speculation. Byrne, a respected MGM executive, was known for his gentle demeanor and deep affection for Harlow. The investigation was marred by oddities and alleged interference from MGM's fixers, who were reportedly at the scene before the police arrived. This intervention was purportedly to manage the situation in favor of Harlow and the studio's interests. Items were said to have been removed or altered at the scene, and witnesses were prepped for police interviews. MGM's primary concern was to protect Harlow's burgeoning career from any scandal that could arise from her husband's mysterious death. Despite the controversies, the official verdict was self-harm. However, alternative theories circulated. One prominent theory suggested that Byrne was murdered by his former lover, Dorothy Millette, who was reported to have been seen boarding a ship to Sacramento shortly after Byrne's death, and later drowned in what was ruled a self-harm. Others speculated that Byrne's connections with more unsavory characters through his work might have led to his killing, though no evidence substantiated these claims. Jean Harlow was never formally accused or charged in relation to Byrne's death, but the scandal took its toll. She was barred from attending the funeral by MGM and advised to maintain a low profile to preserve her public image. Harlow continued to work on films, her performances perhaps deepened by her personal grief. She starred in hits such as Red Dust, 1932, and Bombshell, 1933, and her fame continued to grow despite the shadow cast by Byrne's death. Hedy Lamar. On January 27, 1966, Lamar was arrested in Los Angeles after she was caught stealing $86 worth of merchandise from the May Company department store. The items included several small items of clothing, which Lamar had concealed in her purse. At the time of her arrest, Lamar provided a fake name, further complicating the situation when her true identity was later revealed. The incident was highly publicized and came as a shock to many who remembered Lamar as the glamorous star of films such as Algiers, 1938, and Samson and Delilah, 1949. The arrest and subsequent trial captured the public's attention, not just because of Lamar's fame, but also because of the stark contrast it presented to her on-screen persona and her contributions as an inventor. During the trial, Lamar pleaded not guilty to the charges. Her defense argued that the incident was a misunderstanding, suggesting that her actions were the result of absent-mindedness and confusion, rather than criminal intent. The court, perhaps influenced by her celebrity status and the character witnesses who testified on her behalf, was lenient. Lamar was eventually given a suspended sentence, allowing her to avoid jail time provided she refrained from breaking any further laws. The shoplifting episode was a major blow to Lamar's reputation. Despite her significant contributions to technology, particularly in the development of frequency-hopping spread spectrum, which laid the groundwork for modern wireless communications, this incident became a notable aspect of her later years. It overshadowed her achievements and contributed to a tragic narrative of a star in decline, battling financial difficulties and fading into obscurity. Dorothy Dandridge. She was a groundbreaking African-American actress and singer, faced immense challenges throughout her career, breaking barriers in an industry marked by racial discrimination. However, her life was also marred by personal tragedies and legal battles, including a heartbreaking and controversial custody battle over her daughter, Harolyn, which exposed the complexities of her personal life and the scrutiny she was under. Dandridge's troubles intensified in the mid-1950s, at a time when she was making significant strides in her professional career. Her daughter, Harolyn, was born with brain damage in 1943, requiring special care that Dandridge struggled to provide due to her demanding career and financial difficulties. The situation reached a critical point when Dandridge's marriage to Harold Nicholas, Harolyn's father, ended in divorce, and Dandridge became a single mother. In 1956, the state of California intervened. Authorities claimed that Dandridge was unfit to care for Harlow due to her hectic travel schedule and the lack of a stable home environment. The case was highly publicized, casting a shadow over Dandridge's career and personal life. Media coverage often portrayed Dandridge in a negative light, emphasizing her failed relationships and financial woes rather than her efforts to provide for her daughter. The custody battle culminated in 1957 when the court ruled that Harlow needed specialized care that Dandridge could not adequately provide. Harlow was placed in a state institution, a decision that devastated Dandridge. This legal defeat deeply affected her, both emotionally and professionally. The stress and public nature of the custody battle contributed to a decline in her mental health and financial stability, leading to fewer career opportunities and increasing isolation. The impact of this legal battle on Dandridge's life was profound. It coincided with a period of decline in her career. Despite her historic nomination for an Academy Award for her role in Carmen Jones, 1954, roles for African American actresses were still limited, and Dandridge struggled to find work that matched her talent. The personal turmoil exacerbated her professional challenges, leading to financial difficulties that culminated in bankruptcy in 1962. Barbara Payton. By the mid-1950s, Payton's career had begun to decline. Her high-profile relationships, including a tumultuous engagement to actor Franchot Tone and a scandalous affair with actor Tom Neal, were highly publicized and took a toll on her professional image. The media frenzy around her personal life overshadowed her acting abilities and led to her receiving fewer film offers. Struggling to find work in Hollywood, Payton turned to less reputable means to support herself. In 1955, Payton was arrested for passing bad checks, a crime that was a direct result of her dire financial situation. She had been issuing checks without sufficient funds in her bank accounts, a practice she resorted to as she grappled with unemployment and mounting debts. This arrest was the first of several encounters with the law, which included charges of public drunkenness and petty theft, painting a picture of a star in decline. Payton's legal troubles were compounded by her addiction to alcohol, which began to take a visible toll on her health and appearance. Her once glamorous image was replaced by tabloid photos of her looking disheveled and worn, a stark contrast to the vibrant actress she once was. The legal system, media, and even her peers in Hollywood seemed to turn against her, offering little support or compassion for her struggles. Her descent into poverty and obscurity was rapid. By the early 1960s, Payton was living in squalid conditions, often found in the seedier areas of Hollywood. She attempted comebacks through various small stage roles and wrote a tell-all book titled I Am Not Ashamed in 1963, where she candidly discussed her career, personal life, and encounters with the law. However, these efforts did little to revive her career or improve her financial situation. Barbara Payton's final years were spent in and out of courtrooms and jail cells, her life a cautionary tale of the potential pitfalls of Hollywood fame. Her struggles with the law and her personal demons ultimately led to her untimely death in 1967 at the age of 39 from heart and liver failure due to her chronic alcoholism. Bebe Daniels. In 1921, Daniels was arrested for speeding, a relatively minor offense by today's standards, but one that at the time carried significant legal consequences and public scrutiny. Daniels was famously caught driving at a reckless speed of 56 miles per hour on a boulevard in Los Angeles, far exceeding the speed limits of the era, which typically ranged from 15 to 25 miles per hour. Her arrest was not just a simple matter of paying a fine. Daniels was actually sentenced to serve 10 days in jail, an unprecedented outcome for a Hollywood starlet, particularly one of her standing. The incident was sensationalized by the press, which reveled in the details of her case. The media coverage was extensive, with newspapers across the country reporting on the arrest and subsequent trial of the 20-year-old actress. Daniels, known for her roles in comedies and her spirited on-screen persona, turned the ordeal into a public relations spectacle. Rather than quietly serving her time, Daniels invited the press to document her experience in jail. Photos were taken of her dressed in a stylish prison uniform she had custom-made for her stay, complete with a fetching cap and embellishments. She was also photographed behind bars and even turning the crank of a sewing machine, images that were splashed across newspapers and magazines, effectively turning her punishment into a publicity stunt. The public's reaction to Daniel's imprisonment was mixed. While some criticized her for seemingly mocking the legal system, others were charmed by her pluck and her ability to turn a potentially damaging situation into a humorous anecdote in her life and career. The incident did little to harm her career. In fact, Daniel's popularity soared following her stint in jail. She continued to star in successful films throughout the 1920s and transitioned smoothly into the talkies, maintaining her status as a beloved figure in Hollywood.